So your significant other hates Valentine's Day. Well, so did mine. I don't know if I've shared this before, but I met my husband at our 40-year high school reunion. We'd been high school sweethearts 40 years earlier, and I was so excited to spend my first Valentine's Day with him. But he told me he hated Valentine's Day, and I was like, "What?" And I immediately did what I never should have done. I went into defensive mode because that triggered me. I wanted a husband who would enter into that romantic spirit of Valentine's Day. And I was afraid if I didn't have that, at some level, I wouldn't be happy in my marriage. So now that I was triggered, I started to go into defensive mode, like, well, why don't you like it? What's wrong with that? And, Valentine's Day, blah, blah, blah. But I had learned to catch myself. And so the minute I feel triggered, I slow down and I allow my core self to come to the foreground and quiet my little triggered parts down and get curious about the other person. Get curious about the person who has triggered you with some comment, how they hate this or hate that. So I began to ask him, that's very interesting. What do you hate about Valentine's Day? And that's a great leading question. He looked at me like, are you going to pounce on me? But I was soft and open and, waiting to hear. And so he said, well, it's too commercialized. And instead of rushing to defense, because this is what happens in relationships, the other person says something and we have to refute it or balance it or fix it or correct it. Or I had learned to stop all that. And I said, you know what? You're right. It is pretty commercialized. And it's way too expensive. It's ridiculous to pay, $99 for a bouquet of flowers or a box of candy. And before I jumped again to defend Valentine's Day, I said, you're right. It is really expensive. These are the magic words in relationships. You're right. So whenever somebody is protesting and you feel triggered, and you stop and become curious and ask questions, the next thing to do, and this is for all relationships, is to affirm anything that's correct or right in their statement. That goes a long way. And so I began to see him actually calm down and his defensive posture soften a little bit. And he said, and I never really grew up with Valentine's Day. I don't think it's necessary. And off he went with a lot of different explanations. And I learned a lot from that. And don't even ask me about what happened at Christmas. It was the same thing. But I found out that he had some old memories that also he was carrying with him into the present. And I do too. Sometimes painful memories of Christmas or Valentine's Day or, other romantic holidays or even places. So I want to give you some tips if your significant other hates Valentine's Day, and I've already told you, is number one, in a beautiful place and a safe environment, in a calm way, ask them what they hate and just listen to them and affirm anything that you can agree with. And then keep asking, what else? What else do you not like? What else? Until they are beginning to, as I call it, empty their emotional jug. They're getting to unload all the toxic, negative parts of Valentine's Day. And when you do that, now they're open. Now you go in for the kill, and you like I did with my husband and say, you're right. Let's do a Valentine's Day that's more suited to the way you would like it. What would make you feel romantic? And so he said, well, maybe a nice dinner at blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes. So the whole conversation changed. So be curious, ask questions, listen, and affirm what is correct. And then wait for your time that you can move in. But here's some of the things that you might learn from your significant other. Maybe they grew up in a way that they never even thought about Valentine's Day. It was not that important to them. My husband was an only child. I'm the oldest of 9. What a mix that is. And his parents came over from Poland after the war. So they had all kinds of different traditions. And even though he grew up with me in the 60s and American culture, Valentine's Day was never a big deal with his parents or with his girlfriends. So anyway, that may be part of their culture. They may think it's too expensive and over the top, and I totally agree. It is too expensive and over the top. And I know as soon as Christmas begins to unwind, it might not even be New Year's, and there will be Valentine's stuff in the store. That's ridiculous. We can't change it. But honor the fact that somebody doesn't like that. It's okay they don't like that. It doesn't mean they really hate Valentine's Day. It means they hate the disorder that might surround Valentine's Day. Maybe they have high ideals and they really, really don't like the hypocrisy that comes with Valentine's Day. A lot of people, celebrate it and buy each other gifts and presents and go out to expensive dinners, and then they go home and treat each other like dirt, or they break up the next, month. So yes, there is hypocrisy in relationship. So maybe it's, again, not Valentine's Day that they hate, but a lot of the things that are carried around Valentine's Day that aren't good. Maybe they have painful memories. Maybe they went through a Valentine's Day that was just, heartbreaking. And, we are parts. We're not just one person with memories. Actually, there are parts of us that carry not just the memory, but the wound and the hurt or the unmet desires. And so Valentine's Day and other romantic situations can trigger romances that have gone sour or bad in the past, or where we've been alone year after year after year on Valentine's Day. I know I was single for almost 20 years before I met my husband at our 40-year high school reunion. And Valentine's Day was something I kind of wanted to skip a lot of the time until I learned to come out of myself and my own pain. So they never thought about it. They have painful memories. They don't like the commercialization. They don't like the hypocrisy. Good, fine, agree with that. But here are some red flags to listen to as you keep asking questions why they hate the holidays. And I would pay attention to this and consider it. Maybe they don't like to express vulnerable emotions. Valentine's Day is supposed to be about revealing your heart to somebody. And maybe they can't or don't want to, or have trouble with that. Listen to that. It may be a red flag. Maybe they just need a little softening and opening up. But if somebody is really shut down in that area, you're going to have trouble in the relationship moving forward. If one of their reasons is that they're just a low effort kind of person, holidays, we don't need them. Maybe that's just disguising. They don't want to put a lot of work into relationships, or they're just plain lazy. I've, been in relationship with a few people like that, and it's a real thing. They may also be really afraid of commitment. Valentine's Day, when you give gifts or you do something special, it says something. There's an unspoken language there that says, you're my girl, or you're my guy, or we're moving forward in a certain direction. And maybe they don't want to move forward in that direction, and they're waiting to see what's going to happen. So keep your eyes open. And this is the worst part. Maybe they just don't even care that you get excited about the holiday, and they think you're wrong and you should change and you need to get over it. That's really bad. Now, if they're not even open to working with you or listening to you, please take that as a red flag in the relationship. So these are some things to think about when somebody says, I hate this or I hate that. Maybe they don't really hate it. This is probably they're triggered and there's some reaction to something else. Be curious in your relationships. Start conversation. Ask questions. Don't be afraid of making waves or uncovering unpleasant things. That will never work in the long run. So go there. Ask the questions. Be curious. Affirm what's good. And then share your heart with them. Because when you do this, you may discover something about your significant other that you really, really love. So happy Valentine's Day. I hope it's a good one for you this year. And CatholicMatch and I are sending our love to you as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and we will see you next time.